Episode 86, Acknowledging the Importance of Our Emotions with Angela Adams.
Welcome to Latter-day Life Coaches, the podcast where each episode is a conversation between me, Heather Rackham, and one of my amazing coach colleagues. Each coach here is a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and certified through the Life Coach School. Together, we have one main goal, helping you live your best life no matter what. You ready for this conversation with the coach? Here we go.
Every human being has emotions. They are an integral part of the human experience, and yet we push them away, ignore them, and label them as either good or bad. But really, all that emotions are is a vibration in our body that is produced by a thought. Oftentimes, though, that vibration can be so intense that we can't even get to the point of knowing the thought that is causing it. Coach Angela Adams helps her clients better understand, acknowledge, and feel their emotions. She talks about that process on the podcast today and really discusses the importance of normalizing each of our emotions so that we can have a better life and use our emotions for our growth and development instead of to our detriment.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the podcast today. We're glad to have you here. I am especially glad to have Coach Angela Adams with me. And we post to hitting record on this, or not post, pre to hitting record on this. We've had a delightful conversation about our children and one that I kind of needed. So thank you for
You are so welcome.
Chatting with me, Angela. But Angela, before we get started today, I would love for you to introduce yourself. And I tell people who you work with and all the things.
I would love that. Thank you, Heather, for having me on your podcast. I'm really excited to be here. I am a wife and a mother of 4 fabulous adult children and 1 son-in-law. And I am a grandmother to 4 very energetic and fun grandsons. We do the boy thing in our family. It's just me and my daughter, and we're surrounded by boys, which is so much fun. I have a degree in marriage and family studies, and I've worked actually in a family resource center, a local family resource center, as a coordinator where I worked with parents and caregivers of young children ages 0 to 5. And I found that through my work, I absolutely loved working and teaching parents how to successfully navigate those early years. But I always felt like there was something more that I needed to do. I loved teaching parenting classes. I loved doing all those things. But I just kept feeling like there was more. And about 3 years ago, I found life coaching and knew right away that this was what I wanted to do. So right now, I am an anxiety coach. I work with people who want to really enjoy their life and thrive despite dealing with anxiety. And let me tell you why I feel so passionate about that. So I've struggled with anxiety and overwhelm probably my entire life. I think my earliest recollection was 10 years old. And I remember lying in bed and just, honestly, I was up all night in constant anxiety and worry that I had missed a homework assignment. And I mean, that is my first real recollection. Anyway, and through the years, I have really felt like anxiety defined me. You know, that's who I was. I was just anxiety. And in my mind, I could always see the person that I wanted to be, but she was just out of reach. I felt like I was just trapped in a cage, if you will, this cage of anxiety. And I really wanted to get rid of all these feelings. I really wanted to get rid of anxiety. And I did everything I could. I felt so much shame around having this anxiety constantly. So I guess you could say it was a chronic anxiety. And I felt so much shame that I did everything I could to hide it. And I think I did a pretty good job of hiding it for the most part, because there are several people that have said since, I had no idea. But I was always trying to find ways to manage it. And I tried all the things. I did a lot of the research. And about 20 years ago, it came to a real breaking point. I just couldn't take it anymore. I had 4 children at the time. My youngest, I think, was about 4 years old. And I just knew that I needed help. I needed more than what I could do on my own. And so I went to a psychiatrist, and they immediately put me on some medication, and that worked, and that has worked for a while, but I still felt like there was more I could do to really manage that anxiety. I felt like all those things were just putting a band-aid on it, but I wanted to know how to manage the anxiety. I wanted to know how to go from having that anxiety define me to me managing my anxiety. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
So, again, 3 years ago, I was listening to a podcast, just random podcast on anxiety and self confidence and something or other. And all of a sudden, my world just opened up. And I realized there is something to this. There is really something to this. So, I did a lot of research, and it took me 2 years. Well, yeah, it took me about a year actually to get the courage to. For 2 years I did all the things. And I found that I was able to manage my anxiety, and through these tools, and it was awesome. So I knew I wanted to help others. I knew I just wanted to help others feel that relief and feel capable of managing their anxiety and overwhelm, not really getting rid of it, because honestly, I don't think I will ever get rid of it,
Mm-hmm.
but learning how to put a pause on it, and learning those tools that will help put a pause on the anxiety so that that anxiety didn't manage me any longer. And I wanted that for other people. So I became a certified life coach, and focusing on helping others with anxiety.
I am so glad that you kind of defined what managing means to you, because we know what that means, right? But to some people, managing would be like, I just need to be rid of it altogether.
Right.
And that's not how it goes, especially if you have more of a trait anxiety, like something
Right.
that's just part of your personality. I think Brene Brown separates them that way. Like there's
Yes.
state anxiety and trait anxiety. And
Yes.
state would be like in the moment, people who, we all, I think,
Right.
create and have anxiety in
We
our
all
life.
feel anxiety at
Yes.
points in our life. Yes.
But some of us are more prone to it, which would be like more of a trait anxiety,
Trait
something
anxiety.
that's
And
more,
that's where I fall in.
yeah.
And that's where I knew that this was, I tried, like I said, at first, I wanted to get rid of it,
Mm-hmm.
And in a way that's just avoiding it, right? I just wanted to get rid
Yes.
of it. But I've come to realize that it's just a part of me.
Yeah.
It's part of who I am. But instead of letting it take the driver's seat, I'm putting it in the back seat. I think Elizabeth Gilbert gives that great analogy.
Yes.
You can be here, but you're in the back seat. You're not in
Yes.
control. And that's how I have really learned to manage my anxiety. Put it in the back seat. Recognize that it's there, but let it have the back seat and not the driver's seat.
And yeah, I love that analogy as well. I use it in many different areas. I am curious why you think, because this is something you said, that you felt so much shame around the anxiety. Why do you think that that there is so much shame involved with it? Like why? Because there's, like if it was feelings, it's just an emotion, right?
Right.
And if like love is an emotion too, but we don't have any shame over feeling love. Why do we have shame over feeling anxiety? I
I
think
think
that's so interesting.
I think we feel shame generally when we're feeling a negative emotion. Honestly, I think, it could be anxiety, it could be overwhelm, and especially in the church, we're taught that we can do hard things, which we can. And this was hard, trying
Mm-hmm.
to figure out how to manage anxiety. And I just couldn't. I could not get it in the passenger seat, or in the back seat.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lot of shame. There must be something wrong with me. And I think a lot of times when we feel those negative emotions, we go straight to there's a problem. There must be something wrong with me
Mm-hmm.
because I'm feeling a negative emotion. And the more that I get into emotion work, the deeper I get into emotion work, and the more understanding that I have that we're all going to have negative emotion, and negative emotion is part of the plan.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's all part of Heavenly Father's plan.
Yeah.
He gave us emotions for a reason. I love in society, and I'm being facetious here, how, we have to be positive all the time, positive thinking, which positive thinking is such a great tool. But in a way, when we're putting so much emphasis on positive thinking, in a way, it's kind of like it's saying, yes, but if you're feeling a negative emotion, then something's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I think I really advocate for, hey, you're going to feel negative, you're going to feel positive, and it's all okay.
Oh, okay. Isn't it funny that we know and we believe that like we are going to experience hard things in this life, but we kind of have, and the way you explained it is that we kind of had this belief it's hard, but yet it shouldn't feel hard. It should be easy
Right.
for you. So there's shame when it's not, when the hard things aren't easy.
Aren't easy. Right. And I did. For years there was so much shame, and I just
Mm-hmm.
remember feeling so down and on myself. There's something, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? And anyway, and
We're
nothing. I was
just
just having a human
nothing.
experience, and this is the
Aren't we
way I'm
so
wired,
fun?
and this is the way. Yes.
We're so fun as humans. The what we do with our
Yes.
brains and the things that we make things mean and all of that. But I am so glad that you haven't and that you're putting an emphasis on the emotion, because I'm with you. There is so much work that cognitively that we can do in our brains, different learning how to think differently, have different perspectives on
Right.
things. Like there, that is a very important piece. To me, that's actually what repentance is getting
Yes.
new perspectives on things.
Exactly.
And we know that that's a huge part of why we are here. But we're also missing out on a very huge part, which is the emotional part.
Right. And I find that when people come to me, they usually come to me, obviously, with these huge emotions, this overwhelm and this anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And when feeling such intense emotion, we have to do emotion work before we could even dive into the thought work. Because,
Why? Explain why.
okay, because when we are flooded with so much emotion, a lack of better way to put it is we just can't think clearly,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's almost like our body is taking over our mind. And so before they can get a clear picture of even what's causing this emotion, they're feeling this emotion, but they can't figure out why. We have to allow for that emotion. We think that everything around us is causing our emotions, right? We think that
Mm-hmm.
it's whatever is happening in our lives. That's what's causing our emotions. And we know as coaches that it's not, that there's that space in between, which is our
Mm-hmm.
thoughts, right? There's a thought that's actually causing the emotions. But when they come to me with such big emotions, it they can't really clear their mind enough to see that thought, to see that space in between, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so when they come consumed with this, we have to do the emotion work first. And so I like to teach them what an emotion really is. So we start at the emotion piece. What is an emotion and where it actually comes from? So what's really causing emotions? Because like I say, a lot of times they will say, well, it's because, this happened or this happened that's causing this anxiety. And so really getting them to understand what an emotion really is, what that anxiety really is, and where it's coming from, which is always our brain, which is always
Mm-hmm.
our thoughts. We have to do that first. I have to educate them on that emotion.
I was thinking about how powerful that was yesterday. Somebody said the word motion, and I was at a baseball game or something. I can't remember why, but anyway, the word motion was said. And I was like, well, motion, that's like the main part of the word emotion. And I
Right.
was looking at the correlation between the word motion and emotion. And motion is like movement, right? Like
Yes.
it's what we do with our bodies, and or anything that's in movement is in motion. And I thought of how strong the correlation is then between emotion and motion, because emotions move us to do things. And
Right.
like everything we do in our life is because of how we feel, right? It's because of all the
Exactly.
actions we take are because of our emotions. And
Exactly.
I've never put two and two together there. Like the word motion is part of the word emotion. I don't
Emotion.
know.
I love that. I love that, Heather, because one of the things that I really do with my clients is I help them to stop and to really be aware of the emotion, right? That they're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the first thing, is to stop, take a couple of deep breaths, and be aware, what is it that you're feeling? And
Yes.
sometimes they can't pinpoint, the exact emotion, but that's
Yes.
okay. Just, stop. What are you feeling? And just
Yeah.
that simple awareness. It's almost like we're in this emotion, this motion of
Yeah.
emotions, if you will,
Yeah.
and we're stopping. I like
Yeah.
to
You have
use,
to pause the motion.
yes, you have to pause it in order to realize, what is it that I'm feeling? What is
Mm-hmm.
it exactly that I'm feeling? I use the analogy all the time with my clients. It's like approaching a railroad track, and you've got these blinking lights telling you there's this train of emotion coming, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then what do you need to do as that emotion is coming? The arms come down and you have to stop.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can figure out what that emotion is. And when you can stop and be aware of the emotion, then we allow for that emotion. So we're putting a stop to the motion, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
and really dropping into our body and figuring out, okay, what is that emotion and where am I feeling that emotion? And then we go through the whole process of allowing that emotion. And that is
Mm.
so powerful
Yeah.
when they stop resisting, because we know that when we're feeling that negative emotion, and I love how you said motion, because a lot of times when we're feeling any type of emotion, it leads us to motion, right? But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes when we're feeling that negative emotion, we like to avoid it. So we busy ourselves, right? We
Yeah.
do all these other things. We buffer. I find myself busying myself.
Yes.
I'll clean my house, or I'll do other things. I'm trying to avoid feeling that at all costs, or I'm resisting. And I think resisting and avoiding is kind of the same thing. We don't want to feel it.
Yeah.
We don't want to
Yeah.
feel it. And yet the irony is, the motion of your emotion is going regardless.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's just getting worse and
Yeah.
worse.
Yeah. And isn't it interesting that we think of emotions as like, if we are an emotional, quote unquote, emotional
Mm-hmm.
person,
Mm-hmm.
we have deemed that weak. Like we're weak
Yes.
if we have emotion, if we're emotional. Yet, like that's the whole human experience is emotion. So
Right.
we're kind of saying that being a human is
Is
weak. I
weak.
don't know. It's just an interesting thing. And I know that you like to focus on the strength that comes from emotions, from being emotionally
Yes.
strong.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I would love to talk about that a little bit. Like what's the secret to being emotionally strong
Well,
and viewing it that way even.
I think it's just what we were talking about, actually facing those emotions
Mm-hmm.
head on, acknowledging the emotions that we have, really stopping and acknowledging, hey, I see you. I know you're here.
Yeah. And part of that acknowledging is I would assume labeling it, like actually giving it a
Yes.
name, saying, I am
Yes.
feeling this today. I was giving a
Yes.
lesson in Young Women's this last week, and we talked about that. Like you
Mm-hmm.
have to label it.
Right. And so one of the secrets is that acknowledgement. And I say you have to stop it. You have to name, you have to stop, take a deep breath, and now name that emotion.
Mm-hmm.
And then acknowledge it. And so a lot of times when I'm home by myself, sometimes even when I'm not, I'll say, oh, I'll stop and I'll say, I see you, anxiety. I feel you. I know you're there.
Mm-hmm.
So just that simple acknowledging it, not ignoring it, not resisting it, but just acknowledging, I know you're there.
Mm-hmm.
You're here. And then the second piece is to allow for that emotion to really drop into your body and figure out where do I feel anxiety? For me, it's in my stomach. For me, it's like somebody's taking my stomach and wringing it out like a wet rag.
Mm.
So I know that. And getting really specific. Where am I feeling that? What does it feel like? Is it moving? Is it slow? Is it fast? Is it heavy? Is it light? And really describing that emotion. One of my favorite stories is called There's No Such Thing as a Dragon. And it's a children's book. And it's all about this dragon who just wants to be noticed. And the more he's ignored, the bigger he gets and the bigger he gets. And he overtakes this house. And at the very end, they start paying attention to him. And he becomes smaller and smaller and smaller. And at the very, last phrase is, why does he have to get so big? And the child turns to the parents and said, I think he just wants to be noticed. And that's what our emotions just want to be noticed. Hey, I'm here. And when we can notice and drop into our body and really process and allow our emotions, it's amazing how much lighter those emotions feel. But the very last thing that I like to ask when I'm processing is, okay, why am I feeling this? And by the time I go through all of that, by the time I really drop into my body and I describe it and I get really detailed, then I actually can figure out what's causing that emotion.
Mm.
Oh, oh, I have 20 things to do today, or whatever. Or
Yes.
this thing on my list feels really, really scary or heavy or whatever. And then I can pinpoint that and address that. And I think the third piece is what we just talked about too, is understanding that negative emotion is not bad. It's not bad to have a negative emotion. I mean, if you think about our primal state, right? We were given emotion as a warning sign to keep us safe, to keep us out of danger, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now, and we can still feel that emotion. That emotion can still warn us of danger. We can also understand that those negative emotions are all part of our growth. We have to experience. I like to think of it as, when you and I set a goal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Aren't we going to experience all the emotions? We're going to experience the excitement and the, of setting that big goal. And then we start, working towards that goal,
Yes.
right? And then what
Yes.
happens? Oh, we are on a roller coaster of emotions, right? We
Yeah.
are going to go down and up and down and up, and we're going to
And
have
we're
all
lucky if we stay the course, right? Because we get so
right,
tired of the up and down. It's just easier to just be like, okay,
right.
I'm done. Yeah.
But understanding that having that negative emotion is okay, and that is just going to help us grow and become stronger and stronger. And so those are the three secrets that I have, is just acknowledging it, naming it, and allowing it, and understanding that it is not bad to feel any emotion. That nothing is wrong with you, nothing is wrong with anybody if we have a negative emotion.
It's almost like we need to even just take away the label. Like we need to, as a society, take away the label of negative or positive emotion. It's
Yes,
just an
it's just an
an
emotion.
emotion. It's just an emotion.
I love just knowing that all it is really is that chemical
Yeah.
physiological chemical in your body
Yeah.
caused by a thought. And that's
Yeah.
all it is. And when we get to the basics, those emotions don't seem so scary,
Yeah.
so big.
Yeah. But you can't get to that place until you've actually acknowledged that it's there. Like that's why it's
Acknowledged
so
it
important.
and
Yeah.
allowed it.
I allowed
And
it.
I think people are so scared to allow the emotion, that negative emotion. And I remember I was pretty skeptical, when I first
Mm-hmm.
thought,
Mm-hmm.
allow? You want me to allow something that I don't want to feel? Are you kidding me?
Right.
That doesn't make sense to me. But I gave it a go. And the more I did, it's been amazing. Heather, I will tell you that my anxiety has gone down probably 80%, where I do not feel the anxiety like I used to feel for my entire life, near, not even close to what I used to feel. I've learned
Yeah.
how to allow for it, and it isn't so big anymore. It's just this amazing tool, just
Yeah.
allowing for that emotion, acknowledging it and allowing it and letting it be there.
Yeah.
And it's just like that dragon in the story. Once I did that, it wasn't so big. It's
Yeah.
like, oh,
And probably two parts, right? Number one, because you are not trying to resist it. And because it does
yes,
want to be noticed, it's not like rearing its big ugly head to try to get you to notice
exactly.
it. But
Exactly.
also because you've taken away the shame component involved with it as well.
Yes,
And so you're not feeling
absolutely.
anxious. You're not feeling shame about the anxious. And so you're not
Right,
dealing with the double whammy of emotions
right,
there. You can just feel anxious and not the shame or
right,
whatever else comes along with it.
right. And I find that, when I start to feel anxiety, I immediately stop
Mm-hmm.
and acknowledge it and allow for it. And wow, like you said, it doesn't rear its ugly
Yeah.
head
Yeah.
anymore. It doesn't
And
get
that's
that
a
big.
skill in and of itself is learning to
It's
stop and
huge.
just being aware, like separating yourself a little bit from it. That's a piece that is learned, but
Yes.
is not so hard once you start
Right.
doing that as
It's
well.
just, it's letting go.
Mm-hmm.
It's just letting go and allowing it. And I think with my clients, a lot of times they come with the same skepticism that I had
Mm-hmm.
had at first.
Mm-hmm.
And I walk them through it. And it takes a little bit. It takes a little bit. I have a client that I've worked with for about a year, and she's just now being able to let go and process through the emotion that, just seems so big and so scary. And it's been amazing to see that transformation in her,
Mm-hmm.
how these emotions are not overwhelming to her anymore. She's able to
Yeah.
stop and really understand them on a whole new level and see what's causing those emotions. And it's
Mm-hmm.
been such an amazing transformation. But it does take work. And I think a lot of times when we have these big emotions, we just want that quick fix, right?
Oh yeah. That's
But
why we
we are,
go straight to like watching Netflix or
yes,
whatever it is that we do, because that for some reason just takes our minds off of things really fast. So we think it's fixed it, but it hasn't.
right. But it hasn't fixed it at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
It's still
Yep. We would
there.
love the quick fix. Love the quick fix. Okay. So as we're talking about trying to fix the emotion or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious what your thoughts are, like how coaching is different from working with a therapist or psychologist, because you
Oh,
have worked with
okay.
that.
Yeah.
And there is a place for both of those things. And I guess me asking that question is in no way saying you should be picking one over the other. I'm just looking
Right.
for your experience because
Whatever.
it is a very
Mm-hmm.
different experience for different
It
people.
is. And I will say that I have, I've worked with a psychiatrist before, and I still am on a low dose of medication because it has been proven that I do have a genetic component
Mm-hmm.
of not producing enough serotonin in my body. I
Mm-hmm.
just don't. But it's a very low dose, and I am a real advocate to being well rounded. I
Yeah.
don't think one thing is necessarily the answer. Maybe it is for some people. For me, it was not.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like life coaching gave me the tools. Just the model is the most simplified tool. But once I learned the model in coaching, it opened everything up for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I
I'm
am
going
a
to
real,
interject for 2 seconds in
yes,
case you don't know what the model
model
is.
is.
There, we will link to a podcast episode where we kind of describing in depth what the model is, but it's a tool used for awareness, basically, so you
It
can see
is.
what your thoughts are creating in your life. And anyway, that's what Angela's referring to there. So
Yes, the model. So when I realized that it wasn't my circumstances, it wasn't anything outside of myself that was causing my anxiety.
mm-hmm.
And when I really understood where my anxiety was coming from, it was my thoughts. And I hadn't really gotten that addressed in the different areas. I was trying to find something to do, something that I
Mm-hmm.
could do, but I wanted to understand it, I think, a
Mm-hmm.
little bit more. And coaching helped me with that component, that
Okay.
understanding where my anxiety was coming from and how to manage it.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I felt like my toolbox was like full with
Interesting.
all the other tools, It's taught me how to allow my emotion. I looked at mindfulness, but I just didn't really quite get the connection.
Mm.
But it was actually learning the simple tool of the model.
Mm.
Our circumstances are always neutral there. They have nothing to do with the way I'm feeling. It has everything to do with my thought, that space in
Mm-hmm.
between the circumstance, what I'm experiencing in my life, and how I'm feeling. And
Mm-hmm.
understanding that there was that thought and that I had complete control over my thoughts and my emotions, because my thoughts were what was creating my emotions, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I realized that, and then I really started learning how to allow for my anxiety. And that was another thing that coaching taught me how to do that, how to
Mm.
allow and not feel that shame, and understand that negative emotion and positive emotion are a balance.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay to feel both.
Right.
And there was nothing wrong with that. And so those are the things that life coaching really gave me, that extra tool, that extra
Yeah. Awareness,
capability.
it sounds
Yes,
like. Yeah.
awareness. Exactly. It was
Awareness.
such awareness. And then
Yeah.
the tools that I've learned have helped me
Because
to
once you're
manage
aware,
them.
you can then
Yes.
implement the tools that you have learned in other areas, but you have
Yes.
to be aware first before you can actually learn
Right.
how to integrate things into your life.
And those things didn't give me the awareness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was just going to say, a life coach is not going to diagnose, right? A life
No.
coach isn't going to
No.
diagnose or prescribe or any of those things. And if
Mm-mm.
they are,
Mm-mm.
they should not be.
Not be doing that.
Should not be doing that. So I think it's important to know that difference. Like a life coach is
Is
it's
somebody that can
separate.
show you
Yes.
what's happening in
Yeah.
your brain, can help you with the awareness
Yeah.
component.
Yeah.
And I had a great therapist. She
Yeah.
was awesome, but I just didn't feel like the awareness piece
Mm-hmm.
was really there. So that's what life coaching gave me.
Gotcha. Well, before we wrap up and I ask you to share with us where people can find more
Mm-hmm.
of you, I'm curious if there's anything else that you feel like we need to know or that you want to share with us before we close up today.
I'm just such an advocate for emotions. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like you said earlier, I wish society would acknowledge that emotions are so important.
Mm-hmm.
So important. And I remember listening to Brooke years ago and talk about how she went into to do a presentation for, I don't know, a business. And here she had all these, high powered CEOs in front of her. And they wanted to know how she created this life coaching business that was so successful. and she said something like, "You're not going to like what I tell you." And it was a room full of men predominantly.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, "What do you mean?" And she said, "Feelings." She said, "How to feel your feelings." And I remember listening to that thinking, yes, that's it, you know, how to feel those feelings, how to understand and be aware of where those feelings are coming from. And I think
Mm-hmm.
society just doesn't want to hear that. They want that quick fix. They don't want to take the time.
Yeah. And they don't want to experience them
They
because
don't want to experience
we don't like it. We like to feel the what we perceive to be positive emotions, but
all the time.
all the time. So anyway, but they're all just emotion, and we can't
That's
experience
it.
the positive emotion without actually feeling
Feeling those
the
negative
the ones
emotions.
that we perceive to be negative.
And in
Yeah.
order to grow, in order to reach our goals, we have to feel
Yeah.
negative emotion. We
Yeah.
just have to.
Which is the basis of the gospel too, right? Which is why I just feel like they go
Exactly.
so hand in hand,
They
because
do.
we know that you can't experience the joy without the pain, and
Right. There's
um,
opposition in all things,
in
right?
all
And I
things.
teach
Yeah.
that to my clients. There has to be, in
Mm-hmm.
order for us to become the best that we can become.
Yeah. So good. Well, Angela, thank you so much for joining me today. Before we leave, can you share with people where they can find more of you and learn more of
Yes.
these tools?
Yes, they can find me at angelaadamscoaching.com. I have a couple of freebies on there. That one is a quick guide to managing anxiety, where I give you the steps to actually walk you through on how to allow for those emotions. And another one is a video of me talking about the three secrets to
Mm,
becoming emotionally strong in a very simplistic way. You can find me on Instagram at Angela Adams Coaching, Facebook, Angela Adams Coaching. So I'm out there and I would love to hear
awesome.
from you.
Thank you so much. This has been a fantastic conversation, and one that we can never have enough, because it's just, I think
Emotions are
I
always there,
learned
right?
they're always there, and we learn them and we hear the things, and then it's kind of easy to just kind of start to forget them and slip back a little bit, and then, oh
Right,
yeah. So it's like one step forward and two step back, and then another,
right.
two steps forward and then maybe one step back. But I think it's so important to continually hear this message. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. I've really
Yeah.
enjoyed it.
Hey, we just wanted to thank you for spending part of your day here with us at Latter-day Life Coaches and being part of this conversation. Share this with your friends so that you can have a conversation with them on this topic as well. And as always, subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. Have a good one, my friends.